Hey guitar fans, welcome back to the Smitty Guitars YouTube channel. My name is Ian, I am the assistant luthier at Smitty Guitars, and I want to talk to you today about what is our most popular video by a pretty overwhelming margin. We have about 236,000 views on the Eruption on acoustic guitar video. Thank you so much to everyone who's checked that video out. If you haven't yet, I would love for you to see it. It was a blast to arrange and to play, and I love seeing all the engagement on that video. Now, the top comment on the Eruption acoustic guitar video is currently, for the people that don't play guitar, it's much harder to play something like this on an acoustic guitar than an electric. And that comment sparked no small controversy, which is currently 139 replies long, ranging from, yeah, of course, it's harder to play electric than acoustic guitar. There's string tension and there's a setup difference, and there's all daggone kinds of reasons to.
If you think that the acoustic guitar is harder to play than the electric guitar, it's probably just because you suck at guitar and you're a terrible person, and I hope you die in a horrific farming accident and the cries of your widow can be heard for miles.
YouTube comments, youtube.com, it's just, there's so much fun to be had on this comment section. Is one really harder to play than the other? Is there any objective measure at all, or is it just individual based on your preferences, what kind of music you like to play, what kind of music you listen to, what kind of sounds you're trying to make? Of course, it's just individual. We all know it already. Why am I even making this video? So I'm going to test that exact question with science. Now, we all know these are two completely different animals. Has this ever happened to you? You're an electric guitar player, you're at some kind of get-together, somebody looks at you and says, "Hey, you there, fella, you sure are a daggone guitar player, and here's a guitar, we'd love to hear you play something." Now, being the obliging sort of fella you are, you try to rip through what you're most used to playing. That has certainly happened to me, and that's exactly the tension between the two kinds of guitar that I meant to exploit in my videos. If I were to play the solos that I grew up playing, Stairway to Heaven, Comfortably Numb, Eruption, on an acoustic, but in such a way where all the notes are there in the right place, but arranged in a manner that is idiomatic to the acoustic, could I convincingly play them on the acoustic in such a way that you would think it was made for that instrument? That's the hope anyway. But as I got these things arranged, I found I had a much, much harder time playing them. But why? Now, the reasons that the acoustic guitar is commonly regarded as more difficult than the electric guitar are, first, string thickness. On average, the strings are going to be thicker on an acoustic guitar than they are on an electric. Excuse me, Stevie Ray Vaughan used to play with actual construction I-beams as the strings on his guitar, which is why his tone was so amazing, and if he were to look you directly in the eye, you would die of heartache. That's a generalization, of course. I'm sure you can cite exceptions. I'm sure that you've played guitars, either acoustic or electric, that have an unusual gauge of strings, but typically speaking, it's going to be thicker on the acoustic guitar. I set up the acoustics that I make with gauge 12 strings. So that means that the thinnest string, that's the high E, has a diameter of 0.02 inches. That's 12 thousandths of an inch, whereas the electric guitars are going to have 10 1,000ths of 1 inch as their diameter on the highest string. And that's going to translate all the way across the set of strings. So proportionally, the strings on the electric are going to be thinner, which means less tension when you're pressing them down. It means you are pressing something down that is going to resist you less on the electric with each fretted note. And that's really going to make your life a lot easier. Reason number two is exposure. Now, confession time. You know it's true when we are playing our electric guitars, when we've got gain, we've got delay and reverb and whatever else we like to put on it. We can be forgiven for the occasional note flub, for maybe a note not ringing very clearly, for not picking very accurately. These things are not ideal. A conscientious guitar player on their recordings is going to do better, but generally speaking, you know it's true. You're going to be more exposed when you're playing an acoustic guitar. I cannot tell you how many takes I sit here and play through over and over again because that one note just didn't ring clearly. I just didn't land accurately enough on the fretboard. Maybe I even hit the right fret on the right time, and gosh, if my touch was off, it's gonna ring in a weird way, and that's something I could maybe be forgiven for on an electric guitar. The effects would cover for me, but on an acoustic, well, that's just not the case, and that creates a whole nother set of challenges. Reason number 3 is dynamics. Now, the electric guitar, once you've got all your effects on it, you've got your gain, you've got your reverb, and maybe you have a compressor on it, which I think is a real benefit to any electric guitar tone. By that time, your dynamic range is going to be fairly narrow. Generally speaking, the electric guitar is not considered a very dynamic instrument, not compared to a violin or a human voice. And even an acoustic guitar does not quite have the range of those two instruments. Nevertheless, it is more of a range that is more obvious. It's much more out there in the open. And when I started playing solo acoustic pieces, I had to add a whole nother portion to my practice sessions where I just practiced dynamics, because initially as an electric guitar player, everything I played came out naturally this consistent mezzo forte. To get the piece to come to life, you gotta do more than that. It takes practice, it takes some adaptation, and it is yet another layer of responsibility. And those 3 things comprised a set of challenges for me as an acoustic guitar player that used to be an electric guitar player. What I was used to before was having my amp and my pedals and my pickups doing so much of the heavy lifting, and that's a great thing. That's the art of electric guitar. That's the secret sauce. You and I have watched a lot of hours here on youtube.com about how to get that tone, how to make the most of that pedal, about what pickups should I mod my guitar with. But on the acoustic, I was playing a guitar that is its own amp. All the data had to be put into it, and I was going to get out whatever was crafted into the instrument itself. That meant there had to be a whole nother secret sauce for the acoustic guitar. In my opinion, that secret was, and it's really no secret, but that key was to play multiple notes at the same time as often as possible. That is what the acoustic instrument really wants. As an electric guitar player, I'm used to my leads being single note, but I go to play that style on the acoustic guitar, and it just comes out sounding underwhelming to me, like I'm not taking advantage of the instrument. So if I wanted to make things really speak on the acoustic, I had to adapt my playing style to get this thing ringing together, to get all of the voice and the vibrancy that this instrument has to offer. And we all know that that's what it takes. I would bet my wife's entire salary that the last acoustic guitar gig that you played, you were hired to play 90% chords, just strumming along. And that's cool. That's the feature of the instrument. Now, just about every arrangement that I have published here on YouTube has involved rewriting the single note licks that I played on electric into acoustic licks where as many notes can ring together as possible. And as a man of science, like I promised you, I'm going to play some licks on both kinds of guitar, and we're going to see if I adapt the way that I think is appropriate to both instruments to get the most out of them according to what I think makes these licks work best on both instruments. I'm going to end up playing them fairly differently. And which one is more difficult? I'm going to post the tabs on our website, smittyhandcraftedguitars.com. There will be a link below directly to the page with those tabs, and you can try these out yourself. I've written out how I played the electric guitar parts and how I played the acoustic guitar parts. And the idea is this: if you read these 2 licks in notation, they would look the same. That is, each pair of licks will look the same in notation, but is going to look very different in tab, because I'm going to adapt them differently as I see fit to the electric guitar with some gain on it versus the acoustic guitar just sitting out front doing what it does naturally. The first lick is an A major pentatonic lick, and contrary to what I just said, this one will actually be played fret for fret, note for note on both instruments. So there does need to be something of a control, I decided. So this one, you can feel how the same lick with all the same positions, fret for fret, same bends and techniques throughout every note feels on both kinds of instrument. Check it out. Lick 2 centers around an A minor / blues pentatonic scale, so it's going to be something that seems pretty familiar idiomatically to a blues style playing on electric guitar. When translated to acoustic, it's going to be very different fingering, and I did add bass notes in the acoustic version because if I were playing this solo on acoustic guitar, that's what I would do. Just a couple of open A whole notes in the bass. This one I played standard with a pick, the way you'd usually be playing blues if you like Stevie Ray Vaughan or whoever on the electric guitar, whereas on the acoustic, this is going to use both pick and fingers in a style that's typically referred to as hybrid. Check it out. This third lick is a neoclassical style tapping lick, sort of a Bach-esque thing that you might hear from a guy like Kirk Hammett or Yngwie Malmsteen, and it'll come pretty naturally to you if you like tapping, but it'll be very different on the acoustic guitar. It'll involve finger picking and it'll be moved an octave down. Now, this is a good example of the way that I would shift from tapping on the electric to another style on acoustic. I know that you can tap on the acoustic. Personally, I don't like the sound very much in the way that it's done on electric when just done directly on acoustic. Of course, there's a whole genre of tapping on acoustic guitar, guys like Andy McKee and Anton Dufour, who are amazing at it, but it is a distinct style. So this lick is not going to use the same style of tapping used to accomplish the lick on electric. Rather, it's going to use finger picking, and I think you're really going to like it. Check it out. And finally, here is a B Locrian lick that's going to use high-speed economy picking on the electric, which is going to be interpreted on the acoustic, trying to incorporate as many ringing tones as possible at the same time. Now, this is a very distinct difference between the two styles of guitar. Whereas on the electric, with each pick stroke, I want to keep each note as crisp and clean and free of other notes as I can to keep it from being muddy. On the acoustic, I have the exact opposite goal. It's the same notes, same in the notation, but my fingering is going to try to incorporate as many notes ringing together on the acoustic as I can. Here it is. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to hear from you in the comments. If you got a chance to check out any of these licks and try them for yourself, let everyone know. Which did you find more difficult? Which did you like better? And which form of guitar do you think that they worked better? I would love to hear from you. And also, this guitar that has been featured in this video finished in our shop just a few days ago. Sitka spruce top, Indian rosewood back and sides. It's got black mother of pearl rosette and purfling with solid gold in the rosette, as well as gold frets, Macassar ebony bridge and fretboard, and our 3-shell logo on the ebony head plate. I absolutely love this guitar. I'm so happy with the way it turned out, and this can be yours on our website, smittyhandcraftedguitars.com. We've got it up for sale, and we've got more like it coming up with different shell schemes on them, but same type of guitar. And as always, there's more coming. Would love to hear from you guys, and thank you so much.